This is Center Stage, putting lawyers in the spotlight by highlighting attorneys and other industry experts to help take your law firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week I am joined by Mr. Dave Tester. Known him for quite a while. He is what would you call yourself, Dave? A sales coach? What would be your title?
You know, it's changed over the years. I think I used to, John, call myself a coach or a consultant, but now I think I'm more of an encourager. I think one of our secrets is we get asked to make phone calls or go do sales or whatever it is we do, and people say, hurry up and do it. And my hope is that I can say, let's do it together, or that's not like you, or great job. So I think I've redefined it to a encourager, or finding something that excites you to pick up the phone or make a call.
Awesome. And so, yeah, our topic today is all centering on communication. And I've watched you in action before, and I was just really amazed at just kind of the approach that you brought. And so I wanted to have you on and just kind of talk about that and allow you to provide some of your insight for our attorneys out there in some of the ways that not only they can improve some of their communication with their clients, but if they have a sales team and how, everyone in their office can communicate from receptionists up all the way to the top of the ladder. And so, yeah, before we get in, why don't you just take a couple minutes and kind of tell everyone your story and why we should even be listening to you in the first place.
Well, that's outstanding, and I appreciate that. And Spotlight Branding, just the stuff you guys do. And we always define value as, are you better off after you met with somebody than before? And that's how I've always felt like with Spotlight Branding is you're a lot better if you buy the product, or even if you don't, if you listen to the podcast. And that's our hope today, is that you'll just take one nugget away. My first cold call was in 6th grade. It was 772-4909. And her name was Chanel. And I asked her to the North Idaho Fair. I'm from the far west, or the Northwest. And when I picked up the phone, and prior to picking up the phone, I thought to myself, what if she thinks I'm stupid? What if she thinks I'm dumb? What if she doesn't like me? Finally, I got the courage to dial. And I hoped and prayed that nobody would answer the phone. I was just, please don't answer. And all of a sudden there was a voice that answered. It wasn't Chanel, as it turned out. It was her brother. And I made the statement, is Chanel there? Yeah, just a minute. I thought, oh no, why didn't you say no? She wasn't in. And I heard him go, Chanel, phone. So as he put the phone down, I kept thinking, what if she thinks I'm dumb? What if she thinks I'm not worthy? What will my friends say? All these type of things. What if I wouldn't have hung up the phone when Chanel said hello? So fast forward to becoming an accidental salesperson. And I was told things like smile and dial. It's a numbers game. Hey, you have the gift of gab. So I picked up the phone, my first sales call, and the first person, John, that came to my mind was, who do you think it was, John?
Chanel.
Yeah, Chanel. I'm like, no. And so I made the call, and I thought, what if I'm interrupting the client? What if they think I'm dumb? What if they think I'm stupid? What if they don't want my product? And I really hoped and prayed that I got voicemail. Unfortunately, I did get voicemail. But after that call, I thought, what if I could make it fun? What if I could make it some version of exciting? And what if when somebody said no, I could practice or try harder? What if I had scripts to follow? What if I had a mentor and a coach? So I began kind of digging into that. And I always say people, when they buy a book, 80% of them just read the first chapter. So this was my first book here. It's called Dialing Strangers. And the first chapter goes in depth about Chanel, 772-4909. So that's about the outbound calls, some of the secrets. And then we said, hey, what about the people that do inbound calls? So John, we just finished this second book, and it's called Fearless Communication. And both books are centered around DISC personality, D-I-S-C. And I can go into the history of DISC, which we believe that the guy that developed it had a part in the lie detector test, but we do know that he helped create the first female superhero, and her name was Wonder Woman. And I always thought to myself, that doesn't make sense, until I was watching one time and she had the lasso of truth, which if you got the lasso around you, you had to tell the truth. We believe that's the case with DISC personality. If I can tell that somebody's dominant, I want to make sure they can win and nobody's going to take advantage of them. If they're influencer, I want to make sure they know I love them and I'm listening and tell me more. If they're steady, I want to be sure to give them 3 choices: good, better, and best. I want to make sure that I embrace silence. I think that's imperative, that I embrace silence. And I use words like enhancement. I use words like tell me more, or better yet, tell me what you're thinking. Then the other piece that we do is compliant. And if somebody's compliant, we think of facts, not feelings. We tell them they're going to be correct. We use email more than we do talk. So, John, the concept is not treating people how you want to be treated, which, by the way, I'm a big fan of the golden rule. I believe in the golden rule. But when it comes to what you and I do, and our lawyers that are listening, or the folks and the partners that are, whether you're a junior or a senior, wherever you fit, or you're the director of first impressions, you listen with intent to understand, not with intent to respond. And that means listening for what's not being said. So that's the first thing that if you were to say, hey, Dave, what the heck is it you do? I help people listen with intent to understand, not listen with intent to respond.
Yeah. So what is it? So I kind of a broad example of what that looks like in action, so let's say, you are going to call someone, maybe a receptionist, front desk person. How are you in that moment, without knowing anything about that person in real time? How are you assessing them on a disc level and then tailoring your communication to them?
Well, it's an outstanding question, because the first 7 seconds is when you have to determine. So we're going to play a little sample here. This would be a dominant. And I want you to know, I pick it up. Somebody says, how long does it take to pick this stuff up? Just a lot of practice. But I want you to notice, John, the first words out of his mouth are, hello. Yeah. So just listen carefully. We'll let the phone ring here. Now listen to the first words.
Hello.
Tim, is that you?
Yeah.
Hey, it's me, Dave. I catch you at a bad time?
No.
So notice just right away, I know he's dominant. Conversely, if you're like, well, Dave, how do you know if they're influencer? Because they sound like.
Oh, I love it.
Well, Karen. So you notice how love, and listen more. Home.
Oh my goodness, it's hard to say. Let's see. I love the floor plan and the design. I love the wide hallway.
So you can hear those type of things and you pick them up. Even if you listen to this person, his voicemail, now all of a sudden it's got a different iambic pentameter.
Hello, you have reached voicemail for Mike Dustin at Farm Bureau Insurance. I am in the office today.
So we don't say, oh, what a weird voicemail. We say, Mr. Hinson, what is it you would like to see happen today? I want to be correct. Or in the case of Candy, what are you doing? Or Bill, it's Dave. What do you need to go on? What do you need to happen? Right. So those are what we're listening for in the first 7 seconds. So one quick tip, if you're taking notes, we call this the New Testament or testimonials. Write these down. So the first thing you want to listen for is if somebody's on a speakerphone or talking to somebody else. That's a clue they're dominant. So if you hear it, yeah, hello. Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, John, I'll be over there in just a minute. Yeah, hello. We know they're dominant just by the fact they're on a speakerphone. They could be eating. That would be another one, or talking to somebody else. So there's your one, and as I say, $1 million tip right there. So you say, how do you pick this stuff up? We start out by just listening how they answer the phone.
Right. So then, the best way, I think, and I've seen you do this in person, you do a lot of these secret shopping. You kind of, one of the examples was from that secret shopping. And I think a great way for attorneys to kind of gauge that is to do that secret shopping, because I think naturally, your boss comes up to you, you're going to do your best and you're going to put on your best face. And so you may not get that genuine interaction. So that's where that secret shopping comes in. What sorts of things can an attorney truly learn by doing the secret shopping, or having someone like you secret shop their law firm?
Here's the great part about this. And John, this may be the best part of your podcast today. A lot of people say the best part is when Dave's almost done, but I'm giving you a hard time there. is just 5 things that you have to do. So first, I would encourage you, absolutely, we'll reach out and do a secret shop for you, but just try to call your own office and see how hard it is to get a hold of yourself. So I always encourage attorneys, how often do you call your own office? And I don't want it to be like this. I don't want it to be, Jana, it's Dave. So I don't want you to tell them right away that, hey, it's the owner of the firm. I want it to be some version of these 5 things are what you, and I hold up my hand because it's easy to teach your team. Number 1 is I need your name, your first name and your last name. Number 2 is I need your phone number. Now we can kind of push through some of these. You may or may not want their address. We believe with Spotlight branding, the reason we like not only your email, but your other address is we can send stuff to your home and market to you. That's pretty handy. But I also want to know how you heard about us. That's important. How did you hear about us? Everybody's thinking to themselves, well, no, I need to find out. Are they calling about a litigation? Are they calling about a bankruptcy? Are they calling about divorce? Well, hold on. What has you calling today? And the challenge is a lot of times people at the front desk, they talk to 99% of your prospects and your clients, yet they get less than 1% of the training. And when I call your firm, only about 2, maybe 3 out of 10 of me are going to close the business, meaning you're going to invite me in. I'm just going to say, John, I need to come in. What time works? The other 75%, because we've taught them to do that, shop around. Well, how much is it? Now, we do have a script for that. We don't read it. I'm not talking about me, but I'm talking about as attorneys. Well, we don't charge you, and you come in and you do this, and it gets real complex, and you're thinking, you say, oh, my word, versus would it make sense to invite you in, John? What day works best, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday? Well, let me look at my calendar. I'll hold Friday. Are you thinking morning or afternoon? Afternoon. I have an opening at 1:30, 3:15, or 4. What would you prefer? Notice how I'm giving 3 choices because it's the steady. Once they agree, I say, shall I put that in pen or pencil? Interestingly enough, John, this is the biggest pushback because somebody will say, what does pen or pencil mean? Or that's old school. Almost 45% of our appointments cancel. Here's the concept that I have. If you'll say pen or pencil, it will reduce the number of cancellations by 65%.
Yeah.
So when you're calling your office, you should find out, did they get your first name? Did they get your last name? Did they get your address? Did they get your phone number? Did they find out how you heard about us? Did they ask things like, what has you calling today? But last but not least, would it make sense to invite you in? I don't know how much you pay to make your phone ring, but I assume it's a lot of money, whether you're doing a television campaign, whether you're doing a radio campaign, SEO, whatever it might be, newsletter, all those type of things. Whenever the phone rings, that's the most important thing. You have to answer it before 3 rings. You have to know how to answer it. But most importantly, those are your leads. Every year you lose 25% of your clients. It's not because you did anything wrong. They moved, they went bankrupt, they had a bad experience, they passed away. So when that phone rings, you have to know exactly how to take care of it, and you have to own it with a script. And John, thanks for bringing that up, because that's what fearless communication talks about, how to answer the phone. Because 2 things that people have that is their biggest fear, 2 fears. Number 1, what if the person that calls is mad at me? I don't know why, but that's the number 1 fear. It doesn't matter what the industry is. Well, my industry is different. They get mad at us. Well, everybody thinks that. What if they're mad at us? And number 2 is, what if they ask a question I don't know the answer to? In both of those cases, we have a script that you follow. What if they're mad at me? Go to the volcano script. What if they ask a question I don't know the answer to? You go to the great question you must be asking for a reason. So, John, I know that was, you asked me what time it was and I built a watch, but the secret is the big 5. Make sure you get their first and last name. Make sure you find out their phone number, their address. How did they hear about us? What has you calling? And please, please invite them in. For the most part, I would assume every attorney that we've talked to, I have a script. You may have a script, but a lot of times people don't follow it, or they say things like, I sound too scripted.
Right.
I'm reading my script here, John. You had me at hello. I don't like that script. Now, all of a sudden it's shut up.
Right.
You had me at hello. It's a completely different script. So remind your team, it's not the size of your part, it's what you put in your part. And we expect you to own your script. We want you to be so good at what you do, people cannot ignore you.
Yeah. And to your point, like I'm a very introverted person, and I really connect with that first fear, especially just like, oh no, someone's calling me. What on earth could it possibly be about? And that's something that I've worked on over the years. And the scripts that you provided, because we've worked with you before, and the scripts that you provide are very helpful, and it gets you out of those fears, because it gives you something tangible that you can work with and at least get through the phone call if you're still so hung up on that. And at the end of the day, though, especially what I've noticed is that a lot of times it's not as big of a deal as you were internally, thinking that it was. And so all of that is really great. I had some follow-up questions, but you're so good at this. You answered them without me even asking. It's like you were reading my mind. So one quick thing before I let you tell everybody how to get in touch with you. How can people take the DISC assessment for themselves? Is there a specific website or resource that you prefer that does a particularly good job of assessing people?
There's a company that I use, but my philosophy is this on the DISC. And I'm a big believer, and there's so many different assessments. There's the Strength Finder. And you will never hear me say anything like that one's a bad one or that one's not. Just the fact you're doing it means something. You're in the top 10 percentile. The reason I like the DISC is for this reason is then I'm using the Strength Finder. There's 33 of those strengths. So when I visit with you, John, I know you have a lot of strengths. I know you have a lot of drivers, all those type of things, but I can also pick up that you're steady and compliant. You like to follow the rules. I know that, some sort of a disagreement, not that you won't have a disagreement, but that's your biggest fear is a confrontation. So there's a certain way that I want to pick up. Even head nodding, I could say something like, oh, he's on board with me. And you might be thinking, absolutely not, but I will do this. So I'll say things like, John, tell me what you're thinking, and I'll embrace silence. And it's important. So with the DISC, I've only got to think about 4 things.
Yeah.
Is he dominant? Hey, is he loud? Is he this? Is he that? Oh, I love that you're on my show. Is he steady? Or is he fascinated? Or is he compliant? So that's what I like about it. So any element of the DISC, if you got on and said, hey, I found a free one, or here's one, and it's like anything, you typically get what you pay for. If it's a free one, you get a free one. We have 2 different versions of the assessment that we use. One is that you pay for. One is what I call value added. By the way, that's a coaching tip there. If you give somebody something for free, that's exactly what it's worth. So I think what I would tell you is a couple of things is just get online, Google DISC, and put in free DISC or expensive DISC or whatever it might be, and then find out how it helps you. Because John, where it's helped me the most is my greatest strength. A dominant influencer is also my greatest weakness. I've learned that, and you can look at me, you and I both have the same hairstyle, but a guy that's about 6'3" and overpowering and can be really loud and dominant. I've learned that my greatest weakness now has become my greatest opportunity, and that's the steady personality. And remember, that's 21% of our clients. So if you were to tell somebody, hey, I could improve sales by 21%, well, what would I have to do? Embrace your greatest weakness. Now, that doesn't mean all of a sudden, John, I want you to start yelling and go behind you and grab that chalkboard that says Center Stage with Dave Tester, start pounding on it. But I want to coach you up when you deal with somebody along that lines. Our fearless leader, Mark, we say, Mark, I want you to win. Or when our great director of first impressions, and she may have called you before, Jana, tell me about the volleyball team. I love that. What I'm asking you to do is stretch. So excellent question about that. I think you should just look for resources online and say, hey, what's a great DISC? And if you said, hey, I'm really serious about having my team, and that's where I would start, is have your team take the DISC assessment, because just because that's how you like to be coached and motivated doesn't mean your team does. And where I've discovered that is I'll ask the question, how do you like to be motivated? How do you like to be rewarded?
Yeah.
And we can tell that with the DISC personalities, because if somebody's quiet or they're a thinker, we don't know what they like. They may want money. They may want a pat on the back. They may want a gift. I don't have any idea, but that's part of DISC. Is A, what is your DISC personality? B, how do you embrace others? And then C, the most important part, how do you embrace those? How do you learn how to communicate with them? So we all have two customers, our internal customer, whether it's you, our director of first impressions, and our external is our clients or our prospects, and we have to learn how to communicate with them. So I think any form of a DISC that you would want, you can also reach out to me and say, hey, Dave, what do you use? Or would you be willing to allow me to sample a couple of these? Absolutely. I always say my material, and you know this, I'll give it to you, but you have to use it.
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, send me 500 books, I'm not sure if I'll send you 500 books, but I'll send you 5. And if everybody reads them or everybody listens to them or the same for the DISC, I've added value. But if I just send them to you because you go, hey, that guy seemed like he was really good, here, read this, that won't work.
Yeah. And to go back real quick, I can verify I am kind of in that S and C, the steady and compliant category. So you definitely, you got me. You had me nailed. So, so how can people get in touch with you to get one or both copies of your books, to get you to help them, with their sales team and all that kind of good stuff?
So the website is Go Dave Tester, and it's like taking a test, TESTER, Go Dave Tester. And you can see my website, but if you just put / free stuff on there and just put your name in there, first name. And by the way, I ask for the same things that I'm going to coach and train you to do. I'm going to ask for your first name, your last name, your phone number, email. Well, is he going to call me? I'm a sales guy. Yes. Well, I don't want to be interrupted. Well, that's part of our job. When people say things like, I don't want to sound like a salesperson, or I don't want to be pushy, I say things like, you don't want new customers and clients? My philosophy is love me or hate me. You'll never forget me.
Yep.
So if you go to that / free stuff and you put your first name, I'm just looking at it on my screen here. But if you say, what gift do you want? Let me see what gift I have on here. Send me an audio book, or you may want so I have the audio version of Dialing Strangers. I would absolutely send that audio to you. The Fearless Communications, the new book, we would send you a chapter of that. Remember, this is the inbound. Now, you could also, like I say, what are you willing to invest in your company? You could also go to Amazon. I don't know if some people have heard of that or not, but click in there, Fearless Communication and Dialing Strangers. But here's what we want to add value, just because Spotlight branding has always been great to me. I'm not only a fan, but a proponent, all of the stuff of that. And I don't know when you're listening to this. We recorded this in the early part of summer. This could be the winter time, and you click that. That's the great thing about podcast. If you go to the godavetester.com / free stuff and say, Dave, will you secret shop my business? Absolutely. But here's all I request. Here's what I want in return, is that you'll schedule 15 minutes with me to listen to your secret shop. And then we do one other thing. Not only do I play the secret shop, and you can attest to this because John's been through this, because typically you'll say, well, Sparky was working or Sandy was having a bad day. So we'll pick up the phone and we'll call your office right there. And I'll ask any question you want. If yours has to do with any kind of litigation or bankruptcy or whatever your specialty is, I have no idea. We'll ask those questions. We'll say, hey, my son just got in a fender bender and I was wondering, what do I do? Or it could be, I'm going through a real bad divorce. What do I, and we'll find out the information, and we'll just do it live right then and there. So you can hear. So not only will you hear the call that I made that's recorded, then we'll make a live call. And sometimes we don't realize that the breakfast of champions is feedback. And for crying out loud, if you're not going to have me call your business, you owe it to yourself to call your business. Because think how much time you spend training your director of first impression, the person that answers the phone. Not very often.
Right.
And they learn everything on their own. So I always say, let the attorney diagnose the problem. Don't you do it on the telephone. And we tend to, I think you'll be okay. I think you're okay. Why don't you check out LegalZoom.com? We don't want them saying that.
Exactly.
We don't want them saying that. We want to invite them in, get a great time, book it in PIN, have information, follow up the day before with a text, and have a system that's incredible.
Awesome. And I will put your link in the show notes so everybody can go and check that out. This has been great. Lots of good information as always. So before we wrap up, I have one more question for you. And if you could give one piece of advice to our lawyers out there, what would it be?
Wow, that's such a great question. I think the biggest thing is to sit down at the front desk or sit down with and whether you call them your sales team or your lead generators, because it's one thing to tell me to do another. And remember, we're going to go back to the beginning or the back to the future when you asked, what is it you do, Dave? And the reason I make the phone calls with the team or I make the phone calls with you is to say, look, I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not willing to do. Now, remember, I'm the attorney. I went to law school and I have to pay for everything. And I lay awake at night thinking how I'm going to make payroll. I understand that. But if you'll sit with your team at the front desk and listen to how they answer the phone and encourage them, what'd you think you did really well on that call? What could we have done better? Now, there must be a reason you didn't follow the script in your outbound or your marketing team, or when you're calling for referrals and recommendations. First tell them, then show them, then allow them to do that. So if you'll do that, you'll be the leader, what shall we say, without the title. Remember, in the military, they talk about the Marines go into battle first and they eat last. That's the same with you. Pick up a phone, show them how it's done, encourage them, and don't ask them to do anything you're not willing to do.
Awesome. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. Definitely go take the DISC assessment. We've done that here in our office. We've also done Enneagrams and Strength Finders and Colby. Like, we're super into it here. Not saying you have to go do all that, but definitely check out DISC, give Dave a call, check out his website. Like I said, all of that is in the show notes, and that's going to do it for us this week. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts if you're enjoying the show. I love getting the feedback from you guys. Let us know what other topics you want to hear about, what you want to get perspective on. Always open to any kind of feedback that you have. So that is going to do it for us this week. Dave, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.